The purpose of this video is to spread awareness and ask for a call of action from parents, or even if you don't have kids, just those who want to see an inclusive, competitive environment for our younger kids looking to be a part of USA Climbing's competitions. At the end of this video and in the description, you'll find an email where you can share your feedback on the changes and if you think that they're inclusive or not. Okay, well, to start off, because I know this is a sensitive topic, I want to point out that this video is a reaction as well as the opinions that our family has, as well as the opinions we've received from other parents, other kids, coaches, and even gym owners, as well as some facts to back up some of what we're seeing and to illustrate what exactly the changes that took place are and those potential effects, as well as some results showing what those effects have been. This is coming from a super analytical parent who I know I overanalyze all the time, but I do think that that type of in-depth analysis offers value, and I really wish that USA Climbing would share how they came to their conclusions as well. At one point in this video, there will be a reaction from ScratchRick himself, where he talks about how he's processing the changes and how that might affect him. And then at the end of the video, I'll give you updates with what the results of these changes have been, how they've impacted climbers, and ScratchRick's feedback on how he feels after doing 3 of the new format competitions. For those of you who might not be familiar with the age groups, here is a chart of what it looked like last year. Youth D was essentially a catch-all for kids under 11 years old. They had removed the ability for those kids to go to divisionals and nationals, when in fact they were able to do so in the past. So that was no longer possible. The furthest a child under 11 could go was a regional competition where the best 26 kids in their region compete. Youth C was able to go to divisionals and nationals, and this is something a lot of climbers in that 12 to 13 age category took great pride in, and it was a wonderful development experience. I want to point out that internationally, Youth D is not the youngest age category. In fact, in this example from the UK, it illustrates how they have Youth E. And then also in Japan, again, a country where rock climbing has become very popular, they also offer a Youth E category. In some of these countries, they take these younger age divisions very seriously. In Japan, as you can see, they even broadcast the D category. And people who do well get recognized, not just with a little ribbon that they get if they place in the podium with the USA Climbing, but in many of the other countries, they get certificates or even medals. Here you can see one of ScratchRick's friends, who's 7 years old, proudly showing her second place medal for her age division, 7 and 8. So in July, USA Climbing announced a Youth Series Task Force. They selected 15 members to advise on changes to USA Climbing in their youth division. These are 4 athletes, 3 coaches, some parents, and a route setter. USA Climbing announced that the reason for the change being made was because the International Foundation of Sport Climbing, the IFSC, approved an age change, and that USA Climbing was simply following it to safeguard young athletes from potential negative pressures that are experienced when you compete at a senior level. Now, that makes sense for the IFSC, where in order to compete, children would have to travel internationally. They would be broadcasted on an international scale, and there's a lot more pressure when you feel that you have to represent your country and you're competing against the best of the best in the world, and everyone can see it. But for USA Climbing, that's not the case. No one is broadcasting our events, and these events are local, many competitions being within the same state or up to a 2-3 hour drive away. So what were the changes? Well, instead of Youth D, they now have U13, where they increased the age by 2 years. So now it's 12 and under, where before it was under 11. So now up to 13 years old, 12 years and several months. What's more is that, like D, those kids are not able to compete in divisionals or nationals, whereas those older kids, 12-year-olds in previous years, would get that experience. As with many sports, there are young children, 7 years old, 8 years old, even sometimes younger, who really love climbing, and they really want to be a part of this community and to treat this like a fun sport. Now, there are other major sporting groups that all have categories for kids younger than 8. Almost all other major sports have those younger categories, except for USA Climbing now. USA Climbing making the lowest age group under 13 marks a huge impact for the difference in size between a 7-year-old and a 12-year-old. The reach, the experience, there's so much that separates the youngest from the oldest in this lowest age group, and that makes it extremely difficult for the route setters of these gyms where the competitions are being held, because they have to separate the best of the best climbers in the problems and routes that they set, meaning they have to make it so the most talented 11 and 12-year-olds don't all make tops. What this means, and what I was concerned this would mean, is that 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds, some 9-year-olds wouldn't be able to have a fulfilling experience at the competitions because they may struggle to get zones, let alone tops that are so gratifying. Well, at the end of this video, you can see some actual results of what we've seen now that there's been a few weeks of competitions. As you can see from this drawing from another Youth E competitor, they have the opportunity to enjoy the rewards of their hard work and to be shown recognition for those efforts, for that hard work. If there's an E, a D, and a C group, those are 9 podium places where you can have kids sharing the experience of doing well. Whereas now, with only U13, there's only 3. You essentially cut the amount of recognition and opportunity to celebrate success for young climbers by 2/3. Just cut it right out. I will point out that thankfully there are some local competitions. These are not official USAC events, and some of them are recognizing that there needs to be an age category that allow competitors the opportunity to experience the event with peers that are closer to their age, thus their skill, height, and reach. We did go to that Rhodey Nuggets Red Point competition, and there's the video on YouTube if you want to check it out. Now on to ScratchRick's reaction to USAC's age category changes. Hi, ScratchRick.
Hi.
So I wanted to ask you some questions about the age changes we heard about. As you know, they're increasing the age in your category from under 11 to under 13. How does that make you feel?
It doesn't make me feel good. Because when I started competitions at 7 years old, I didn't have a chance, and 7 and 8 years old barely have a chance, even 9 years old. Because like me, 8-year-olds and 7-year-olds, because I turned 9 and I still feel like I don't have a chance. I feel like it's just like if I had it more difficult when I started rock climbing competitions, I wouldn't enjoy it.
So what are you worried about?
I'm worried about how now they have it harder for USD people because they added people taller, stronger, and older to our group because they combined USD with UC.
What were your goals before the change?
My goals before the change was to have fun, but it would still be challenging.
How about now?
Is to just make it to regionals, but it'll still be hard because there's more kids.
Do you think you can do it?
Yes, because when I was 7 years old, I made it to regionals, and it's kind of like right now. It's kind of like when I was 7 years old.
Do you think competitions will be fun?
Yes, because it'll be more challenging and I get to meet my friends.
Do you think it'll also be fun for like 7 and 8-year-olds?
No.
Why not?
Because I feel like it'll kind of not be fair. Because it's kind of like when I was 7 and it's kind of like they're like 5.
Like as if they were 5 now?
Yeah.
Like as if you were 5 when it was under 11. That's what 7 is like for under 13, huh?
Yeah.
Cool.
And it's still kind of like I'm 7 right now because of the age change.
Do you have any advice for younger climbers?
Yes. My advice is if your dream is to be inside competitions and like win podiums, then never give up inside rock climbing.
What do you want your subscribers to know?
I want them to know that whatever place I get, I'm trying my best, and I hope you guys stay followed and subscribed to help me on my journey to become as famous as Toby Roberts.
If they wanted to like ask you a question, what can they do?
They can leave a comment.
Good. Okay, well on that note, thank you for letting me interview you and good luck in your upcoming competitions.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. So it's been a few weeks. We've had several competitions that we can extrapolate data from and see were our concerns valid or not. So let's see what they show. Well, in this first example, you'll see the person in last place unfortunately didn't get any tops. And well, that's not uncommon or unfair by any means. In fact, this is quite normal to see at a competition. But then if you look at the top, you see 6 people share first place.
This is not counting second and third place. 6 people got 1 attempt, 1 top on all the boulders. What that tells us is that the boulders were set more for the younger, shorter, less experienced climbers. In other words, what was former U13, and it didn't take into account these taller, stronger, more experienced climbers who are all able to flash every single problem. There shouldn't be a situation where a tie for first place can't even fit on the podium. Moving on to the next comp, you'll see the person in first place did very impressively. They have a 7-digit score. And as you go down towards last place, you see 4 digits, 3 digits, with many times that they didn't even start the boulder, let alone top, based on how this point structure is. And the poor person in last place got 0 points. They weren't able to make any progress. That must be extremely frustrating and discouraging. Here's another example where the poor child in last place, they tried 12 times to even just get a low zone. They experimented with another boulder 1 time that they weren't confident on, and the other 4 boulders, they didn't even attempt. They focused all their attempts on what was supposed to be the easiest boulder for them, and they got nowhere. This would be extremely discouraging, not only as a competitor, but I imagine for the parents as well, especially considering they pay to attend this event and for a USA Climbing membership. This is not how I imagine most families want to spend their Saturday. On to the next example. Here are 10 competitors who were not able to get a high zone. In fact, half of them were only able to get 1 low zone. Again, this is not a fun, inclusive competition. This many children should be experiencing at least some tops, at least some high zones, and yes, some challenging climbs where they aren't able to get the high zone. Maybe they're stuck on the low zone, maybe 1 or 2 that they couldn't even start, but this many is just not inclusive at all. And when you look at the person who came in first place, it looks like the perfect score for what it should be to achieve first place. That means the boulders were set for this first place climber who, by the way, would have been Youth C in the old age categories. So this older climber got to experience what is perfectly set for them, while the younger climbers and smaller climbers and less experienced climbers didn't even get to experience the full competition. In this last example, here's 13 climbers who I assume would have liked to have had a better experience. Again, the person in last place with no zones. And if you look at the top 6, these are all climbers who would have been in the old Youth C. These are all climbers that should not be matched up with those younger, smaller, less experienced climbers. In fact, you could take all the climbers that should have been in Youth C for just this competition, and they could have had their own competition where it would have been a fair and balanced one, where the people who achieved first, second, and third really earned it, and there would be plenty of 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8ths, 9ths who would have tried their best and came a little short. And then all of these climbers, all these 13 at the bottom, could have had an opportunity to have routes set specifically for their age. And that would have made it so much more inclusive. That would have made it such a better experience. And maybe even if these particular climbers didn't achieve first, second, or third place, even with the adjusted boulders, at least they could have gotten tops or more high zones. And the climbers at the bottom would have had an opportunity to get value out of the competition.
Hi, ScratchRick.
Hi.
Come on down. So, now that you've done a couple of the qualification events for USA Climbing, what's your feedback?
I don't like it that much.
Why don't you like it?
Because of the age change.
Oh, how did the age change affect you?
It affected me because they made the climbs harder.
How are they harder?
They're harder because it has longer reach and it's set for more older people.
So how have you been doing in the competitions?
I've been doing pretty good.
Yeah. Hiccups. How's pretty good? What's pretty good to you?
The thing that's good is that at least I've been getting a very high place for my age.
So you also did a competition where you got all the tops.
Yeah.
So was that a good competition? Was that set how you think it should have been?
Yeah.
Yeah. What about the other two?
The other two, I don't think those ones were good.
So with the with the new comp format, how do you think this makes the kids who are younger and shorter than you feel?
Very sad.
You think they're sad? Why would they be sad?
Because they couldn't get zones or low zones or even tops.
So you think that makes them feel sad? Yeah. What would you tell them?
I would tell them how it's harder climbs because people are older now.
Do you think that would make them feel better?
Yes.
Yeah. Would you tell them to keep climbing? Yeah. Excellent. Well, I hope you keep climbing, and soon you'll be older, and hopefully, regardless of if they make the changes to the age group, you can do better year after year. Thank you, ScratchRick.
You're welcome.
So what happens to those climbers who fail to hit the target, who not only don't get tops, but fail to even start any of the boulders, not make any progress? What does this do to their mentality? Well, there's something called learned helplessness. And without going into too much detail, it's basically a conditioning where if children or even adults, if they constantly fail at making progress, if they are constantly met with insurmountable odds, then what they do is they start doubting themselves, thinking that they're not capable of achieving those successes. And it results in them performing worse and it becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy. We don't want to do that for our kids. And of course, there are many parents who are wonderful, who can help protect their kids from those negative thoughts. But we can't rely strictly on the parents of the children competing. You know, not every household is the same, and we should give them the opportunity to find fulfilling experiences and not need support from negative experiences at these events. And then, of course, there's also the Olympic factor. If you want to talk about USA climbing as conditioning and preparation for our most experienced athletes to take the global stage and represent America, look at the podium. 2 of the top athletes are teenagers. They started competing at a very young age. And we don't want to dissuade some of our youth from being able to enter a sport where they could potentially be the next Olympian. By making this bar for older kids, it makes it harder for young kids to find enjoyment and pursue competitive climbing. There's also the diversity factor, which I won't go into too much detail, but the short of it is that USA climbing is not a very diverse sport in its current state. And that's in part because the kids who are climbing are the children of the demographic of existing, experienced, passionate climbers. Now, if we want to make it easier for people of color to enter the sport, we have to make it easier for those children who have not been exposed to climbing to find enjoyment in climbing, for them to continue it as a sport. So at the beginning of this, I said, what can we do about it? Well, thankfully, USA Climbing sent an email in October where they thanked people for their feedback to the changes right when the changes were starting to take effect. Now, it's too late to affect this year, but as you'll see, they did say that they were listening to feedback and were considering what changes needed to be made. Now, there's the email address. It's in the description of the video. If you want to make children's dreams come true from a younger age, please message USA Climbing and let them know what you feel. Please, I hope that you also feel that the sport should be more inclusive for our younger kids, making it possible for 7, 8, or 9-year-olds to achieve starts, to achieve zones, and even to achieve tops, for an opportunity for some of those best climbers to also achieve podiums and not be consistently in last place.